It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Dragon's Lair.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Dragon's Lair podcast, your home all things Dragons RFC and rugby in the region. I'm Jamie, and joining me as usual is Gavin Thomas. Gavin, how are we?
I'm very well, Jamie, very well prepared for the fine feast of rugby we have this weekend.
Makes a change for you to be prepared, Gav. No, only joking. You've always prepared. I know that. You've always prepared.
No, I think you were right first time.
Okay, so you can find us at all the usual places: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook and X. Right, so this week then, we are doing a Judgement Day special. So Dragons are facing the Scarlets in Cardiff at the CCS, not the Principality Stadium this year. And we have a Scarlets fan to help us preview that game. So our guest is an academic, a writer, and she has appeared on podcasts such as Rock and Roll and Blood and Mud. It's Burnley's finest, Rhiannon Garth Jones. Welcome to the pod, Rhiannon. How are we?
Sorry, I think I'm just going to have to recover from being introduced as an academic and a Scarlets fan.
Gav told me to say that, just so you know. That wasn't my intro, that was Gavin's.
Is swearing allowed on this podcast? I should have checked.
Yes.
Gav, I've immediately got some words for you.
Yes.
I'm good, thank you. Hello, it's really nice to be here.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So you're a Burnley girl living in Denmark. You're also a Welsh rugby fan and a Scarlets fan, as I mentioned. Could you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and how come a Burnley girl ended up in Denmark?
Yeah. So, I mean, the short answer basically is that everyone in my family ended up somewhere not in Burnley for quite a substantial period of time. So it's quite normal for us. One of my brothers lives in Cambodia at the moment. The other has just moved back to the area, but for years lived all over the place. I'm the weird one for moving to one place and staying there like kind of permanently, not like traveling around, which is what both my parents did for like all of the 80s, and tried quite hard for a bit of the 90s as well. So it's quite normal for us. And then basically, I got a new job. And the night before I started, the only time Google has ever given me an advert for something I might actually want, that's not something I've already tried to look up. it was like, do you want to move to Copenhagen and study a master's for free? And I was like, oh yeah, I do want to do that. That sounds fucking great.
Sounds good. Yeah.
For free? What? And it was just after we'd voted to leave the EU, and I wasn't super thrilled about leaving the EU. And it was it just kind of like just sort of perfectly timed. So I started this like day one of this new job. I was like, so happy to be here, immediately thinking about leaving the country. And I moved and just loved it from the start.
So
brilliant.
I know this, but our listeners want. So why Welsh rugby?
All right. Well, so I think the name probably gives it away,
A little.
if the accent is confusing. So my dad's side of the family is Welsh. My granddad was he wasn't born in Wales. He moved back, but he moved to Ynysmon. He learned Welsh. He's a Cymraeg speaker, and so obviously rugby union not big around Burnley really, or rugby league. So we grew up, me and my brothers, watching football and cricket because my dad kind of fell out of love with it in the 90s. But my granddad was like, 3 grandchildren that like sport? Fucking great. And so basically every time we went over to visit, we would watch, and we would, as you would imagine, of a man of that generation, we heard a lot about JPR and a lot about Barry John and a lot about the great Llanelli team and the Wales teams of the 70s. And
They beat New Zealand.
I heard somebody once told me that, Gav. Yeah.
No way. Why didn't they say something?
Am I the first person to tell you? You're so lucky you've got a Scarlets fan on the podcast. Finally, you can hear the stories of the glory days.
So why they beat the All Blacks?
So why Scarlets then?
So they were my granddad's team.
Oh, okay.
I think when Welsh rugby went regional, because obviously there wasn't a team in North Wales, he just went for Scarlets on the basis that they were Llanelli, and if he had to pick one of the others, it would have been them. And so, to be honest, I didn't really follow them when I was younger. I kind of kept an eye on it in the 2010s. I think it wasn't really until he died. I just watched international rugby before that, and then when he died, I was like, well, I've got no one to tell me stuff now. And it's not like he was ever a very reliable source of information on the Wales team. His opinions were dreadful. But I was just sort of like, right, well, I guess I'm going to have to find this stuff out for myself. So I just sort of was like, well, I'll start watching his old team then. It's quite nice, way to kind of remember him. And then I moved to Denmark. That would have been 2017, and had a little bit more spare time on my hands. So I watched a bit more rugby. And also, that was the time, I think in the 2010s, I don't know how you guys felt, but unless you were very, very online, and by that I kind of mean on Reddit, there wasn't a lot of good rugby content that was a step above the news. There was analysis, but also wasn't the Murray Kinsella level of I sort of need a graph to get my head around some of this.
Yeah, I think that was a relatively new thing at that point. I used to read Stephen Jones and JBG Thomas and the Western Mail and stuff.
Yeah, so my mates would be texting me being like, "Well, yeah, I read this Stuart Barnes article and I think it's wrong. Can you tell me why?" Or I'd read What's His Face that I blocked it out of my mind this week, and I'm fine with that. But the lad who should know better because he's actually Welsh, who used to write for The Guardian, who once confused Rhys Patchell and Rhys Priestland.
Oh, God, yeah. I know who you mean, yeah. Harry something, I want to say he's called.
He's not employed anymore. I don't wish him ill or anything, but I don't mind that. Anyway, so there was a period where all of my mates would kind of text me for more in-depth rugby, just information. And I just realised, I was like, the amount of time I spend texting people words, I could just write these words for more people. And I was already a journalist. It's not like I didn't know how to write the words. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to write the stuff about Welsh rugby that I would like to read. And if no one's going to write it, I will. At least other people can read it. And so that's what I did. And then I made loads of extra rugby friends, which was very nice. And then Gav, which was less nice. That serves you right for
isn't
earlier.
it? What a lovely story.
Yeah, till the end. So for you, who's the archetypal Scarlets player? So you're not of your granddad's generation, clearly, not of my generation, so you won't remember Leslie players of the 80s and 90s. So for you, who were the players, not growing up, because you were an adult, but the players that, first drew you to the Scarlets, made you fall in love with them?
He'd long retired by that point, but I think I knew I had watched Stephen Jones play for Scarlets when I wasn't really watching like domestic rugby. And so when I kind of decided to like start paying attention to domestic rugby, and I felt like I was always going to support Scarlets, that was my granddad's team. And I was like, oh yeah, and that was Stephen Jones's team. Well, I like that. And then I think that was might have been the year Foxy was at it was in the period where Foxy was at Claremont, I think.
Yeah, would have been that time.
But but there would have been Cubby was there, John Barclay. There was a lot of really good back rowers.
Yeah, it's Tyburn.
Actually, that's not true. There was a lot of really good flankers. There was not a single number 8. It was just before Tyburn joined. It was just before Patch joined. I love Reece Patchell. I want nothing but good for him, and also for him to immediately return and play for Wales.
We're trying to sign him. The Dragons have been trying to sign Reece Patchell for the past 2 years or so. So honestly, he may come to Wales. Who knows?
If he can't play for my team, I just want him to play for a team that will let him play for Wales and pay him some money and let him play some nice rugby. Every time I see him do really well in Super Rugby, it just makes me really happy for him.
He'd look good in gold and black, I reckon.
Yeah, I think you could pull it off. You need to improve your team. I know that's rich coming. I know that's rich coming from my team, but
Oh no, but we often say on this pod that we need another 10. We've got a young 10 in Will Reid, who's a good player, but he needs somebody occasionally to say, "Don't do that. That's really stupid."
And it's not. I mean, I wouldn't describe Reece Patchell as a voice of sort of calm and wisdom necessarily, but I think he's a more rounded, calmer player than he gets credit for in Wales, actually.
I don't think he's not cut from the, I think when he first came out, it was this idea that he was a throwback to the Welsh 10s of the 70s, and he was all sidesteps and jinks. He's not that player. He's not damn bigger by any stretch of the imagination, but he's more in the vein of Gareth Anscombe or Reece Priestland than he is.
He's definitely closer to them, yeah. But he's more. I think the thing about Patchell is, I think he has generally played in teams that let him play with more flair, she says wincingly. But he is perfectly capable of being like quite a boring 10 if you want him to be. He's just very rarely asked to be, and Gats very rarely trusted him to be, but he can do it quite well, actually. It's just it's not asked of him.
Yeah, well, I think Gatland, it was a lack of trust for Gatland.
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about the Wales game in 2019, where he came on against Australia, because Bigger got injured in the first half, and he was just really composed, actually. And I know it felt for a lot of people, that was the period of watching Wales where I was just incredibly serene, because I had, partly I think because I was writing about it, and it's actually quite difficult to be like really stressed when you're literally taking notes. But partly because around the end of 2018, I was just like, I think I've worked out what Gats is doing here, and I trust it, and it's working. And you just have to believe that the fitness will win. Like, we will win games for the fitnesses. So it doesn't matter if it's really stressful on 78 minutes, because when it comes to 80 minutes, we'll be fine. So that Wales-Australia game in the World Cup, almost everyone else was really, really stressed watching it. And I was like, no, it's going to be fine. It's working. We're running them off the park. They are getting more and more tired. We look really calm. It's not going to be a problem. But I thought Patch was perfect for that. He just sort of came on, actually, and was really calm and did all the same stuff that Big had been doing put the ball in the corner, dropped a goal every time he could, like, thought it might be on. And he could have been more of that kind of player, I think, if he'd been asked of him.
Yeah, I agree. He's had wretched luck with injury as well, though, Rhys Patchell. If you've got a bit of that in mind, he should have had more Wales caps, but injury has fortunately held him back.
It's not said enough. Rhys Patchell is quite a big fucking lad for a half.
Yes, yeah, he is.
He's not a Andre Bullard type, but he's quite a big. He's very, very useful at this level. Honestly.
How old is he now? Is he 30?
He's not even that fucking old guy. I was having a perfectly nice moment enjoying him being good in the Highlanders a couple of months ago now. And then Josh Gardner from Blood and Mud texted me to be like, it's not even that old where you could come back. And I was like, Josh, I really don't think my heart is, I don't think I can take that right now. Would you please leave me alone? Yeah, he's like 29, 30 years old. He's got loads of time playing left in him. You would be lucky to have him. I would be
He's
sad.
actually 31 years old. Just looked it up now.
But quite recently, I think.
Yeah, it would have been 17th of May. Yeah, 1993. So he's just turned 31. Still young.
Basically, he's got another World Cup cycle in him. That's all I'm saying.
Definitely, I love to see him at the Dragons. We would, Gavin. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, that's one of our top topics of conversation, I think, isn't it?
I would wish him nothing but well if he came back to Wales and played for you guys. I think that'd be great.
Well, hopefully, we did have conversations with him before he went to New Zealand, so who knows? Keep your eyes peeled.
He must be willing to come back. I think it's just a question of the money and whether any of the regions can afford him.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a challenge, isn't it? I don't know how much money he's earning at Highlanders, but it's. I don't think it's more than he done at any of the regions.
I can't imagine Rhys Patchell is earning an exorbitant amount of money. I don't think you need to be for it to be a problem for the regions to afford you right now.
I reckon he's probably on 125, 150k a year, which would put him out to the reach of a lot of regions.
Yeah,
absolutely. Especially with all these budget cuts and smaller squad sizes. We'll talk about that a bit later. But I want to move quickly on to a bit of news. So, Dragons confirmed that the forwards coaches Luke Narraway and Methan Davis are leaving at the end of the season. We expected that, didn't we, Gav? So no surprises there. Sam Hobbs, who has been the Dragons Academy head coach and the forwards coach for Newport IFC and the forwards coach for Wales under-20s, is expected to be Dragons' new forwards coach next season. Any thoughts on those departures, Gav? I think we both agree it's probably the right time for them to move on.
I think, they both put in a shift, but it wasn't achieving anything, and I've got a lot of time for Methan. He's an Ebbvale boy, he's a good bloke, good coach, but it wasn't having the impact. Our forwards have looked massively underpowered for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, no, you're right. Luke Narraway did a really good job with our line. Now, according to the URC stats, we have got the best line out of the Forwards region, surprisingly. That's one area that has gone well for us. So, he's done a good job there. So we expected them to leave, and they are going to be leaving. And then in other news then, Dragons have announced a pre-season friendly against Bristol Bears at Clifton RFC. So that's going to be on Friday, September the 6th, kick-off 7:30pm. Tickets will be available on the gate, £10 for adults and £5 for under 12s. That's good value, isn't it? So
nice venue as well. Nice venue, Clifton. Nice ground.
Yeah.
Proper old school rugby ground.
Yeah, I fancy that one. Right there, so that's the news then. Like I said, it's only a little bit of news. Let's focus on our opposition, the Scarlets. Right then, Rhiannon. Look, I fully recognise...
my internet is falling apart. I'll just have to leave now.
I fully recognise the irony for a Dragon supporter to be saying this, but the Scarlet season, it's really not gone well, has it? I mean, you look at what's happened. Record defeats both home and away in the URC, losing to Black Lion in the Challenge Cup, becoming the first Welsh region. I know, I'm sorry about this. Becoming the first Welsh region not to pick up a single point in the European campaign. So Scarlets making history for all the wrong reasons. There's been question marks about the coaching appointments and the running of the club. So why do you think it's gone so pear-shaped for the Scarlets, then, Yana? What's your thoughts on it?
I've got to be honest, I have paid slightly less attention this season.
Probably for the best, I would say.
Yeah, which as you run through those records, I don't feel all that bad about. I do think this only occurred to me actually yesterday, looking at it's the only time I'd really thought about it properly. But probably more than any of the other Welsh squads, I think we had not even top heavy necessarily, but I think the budget cuts have been really difficult for a Scarlet squad that at least quite recently felt like it was competing at the top level. I'm not saying we were, but like there was an ambition there was a realistic expectation that maybe we might. And so we had like numerous Lions, never mind internationals, in that squad. And I don't think it was wrong to stick with players like Scott Williams or Foxey or Halfpenny, or I know you don't like Johnny McNichol, Gav, but we're not doing that now. Those were players who have given a lot to the club.
Yes.
I do think, there's always a balance between like loyalty and sport being a business, but you have to be able to keep fans engaged when things are going badly. And one of the ways you do that is with like fan favourites.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think our squad had got to a point where it just was not remotely in a good place for the kind of cuts we've had to put in. And honestly, I kind of think next season is also going to be pretty brutal, maybe slightly better for the kind of the experience that a lot of the younger players have got this season. But I would expect next season maybe we'll beat Black Lion next season. That'd be nice. But I don't feel super optimistic about the fixtures that I'll be tuning in for, because I just think if you look at the players who are leaving, like John Davis is one thing, right? Scott Williams is one thing, but like Wyn Jones was a Lion, very recent, a starting Test Lion.
Yeah,
that's right.
He's off.
On the last
Samson Lee, obviously, it's been ages, but he's off. I've forgotten like. There's something like 20 players leaving.
It's
there were
15
already
players.
loads of 15 players leaving, and there were already players who'd left. And that's not. I think Fafita will probably also be going, which is a shame because he's good. But I don't see realistically how we could afford his salary while playing and reasonably say to everybody else, yeah, we're just going to pay you like peanuts. So I just think we haven't. A lot of our young players that have come through the last few years have either gone to other clubs to get game time or had some bad luck with injuries, and either way they just haven't come on the way they needed to. And a lot of the more senior players just haven't, for whatever reason, been able to carry us. And it's kind of exactly what you'd expect, really. If you look, our wage, I haven't written about Welsh rugby for a long time. I don't know the statistics anymore, but we had the highest wage bill, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, you had the biggest budget,
and by some margin, I think as well.
I think it was 8 million at one point. It was 8 million starts of the budget. Yeah.
Because there was, this idea that Scarlets were like, well, we won the Pro 12, we were like in the semi-finals in Europe, we were kind of like, we had something that maybe could have got further, and that's been a while now, but and there was that sort of that this is the core of the Wales side and whatever, and it hasn't come through, I think, for various reasons, and now we've just kind of been left with a squad that was past pruning, I think.
I think Scarlets. Sorry, I think Scarlet's story is like Wales's story almost, isn't it? You had this core of players who overachieved, and then all of a sudden they were old, and the guys around them weren't as good.
And everybody really wanted to make it happen because you want one team to be good, especially, I would hope that actually everybody would rethink this in light of the last couple of seasons. But like, especially if you look at Ireland as the model, right? And you're like, you just need one really good team, and then it sort of trickles down. Actually, it turns out that's a terrible idea. But so I think a lot of people in Welsh rugby kind of wanted Scarlets to be that team, and it wasn't totally unreasonable. I don't think it's the best way to have done it, but it wasn't totally unreasonable to be like one strong region to support the national team, and we build around it.
But the Irish model works, doesn't it? And I'm not even convinced the Irish, because Munster achieve well as well. It's not all stuck within South Dublin.
No, but I think Munster achieve well despite the Irish model, and I think Munster achieve well because they're so well rooted in the community around them.
I think having a budget twice as big as any Welsh region probably helps as well.
Oh yeah, but they also have the Munster also have private investors.
Yes,
and that's what I mean. They have. I don't think the Irish model necessarily works. I think it looks like it looks well. It works better than the Welsh one. I think we can say that very reasonably.
I think all models work better than the Welsh model. If we're
I'm not
honest.
even sure we could describe the Welsh model as a model. It seems to just sort of be like a pile of clothes. It's like my laundry basket, which isn't a basket. It's just a pile. There's some sort of order if you root around in there, maybe. But
I think Scarlets, a bit like Welsh rugby as well. It's Scarlets have been the best region for a long time. Them and the Ospreys have been the best two regions for a long time. And it's a bit like Welsh rugby was. Well, it'll always be like this. Why do we need to make hay? The sun will shine forever.
And I think there's also this idea, like Llanelli were good and then the Scarlets were good, so it's fine. Like that's not a system, and also that's over like 50 odd years. This is not like an ongoing dynasty. No. In the same way that I think, like, I would say, we made a joke about this off air before. But every time we talk about cutting a region or merging a region, the fact that it's Ospreys that gets suggested to be cut, or like merge with someone else, I think is criminally unfair. As like the only one that really tried to commit to the regional system properly, I think. And then they just constantly get shit for it. And it does not seem reasonable. I understand the reasoning around it, but I do think it's just very unfair on the match.
I know what you're saying, but to be fair, it was Y11, wasn't it? That instigated the mergers. It was them that went to the Scarlets, wasn't it? It was them that went to Cardiff. They've kind of instigated that themselves.
It's not
I
that,
know what you're saying.
It's more that it comes up quite often, like, oh, well, you can't, if you have to cut a region, you can't cut Cardiff and you can't cut Llanelli. Why?
It's just all the Ospreys. That's all it always is.
Just always the Ospreys. And I'm like, it's just really unfair that they're the one that like really fully committed to this shitty model because they were told it was what we were doing.
But and that was the problem.
A reasonably good job of it, actually.
Yeah.
And they just kind of get shafted for it.
That was the problem. The WRU were like, right, we're doing this regional model, and then Cardiff said, well, we're a region. Okay, and then Scarlets said, well, we're a region.
Yeah.
Okay, and Newport said we're a region, even though Newport did involve the Dragon, the Gwent side more. And then Ospreys were left going, hang on a second, it's that meme, isn't it, with Jennifer Aniston and you guys merged.
They're standalone, so in the Cardiff and Scarlets are standalone teams, and let's be honest.
But then if that was going to be the model, that should have been the model, and there should have been 4 standalone teams.
Yes.
But it's they've tried creating something which is neither one thing or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could relitigate this forever, and it is a Welsh rugby podcast, so what else would we talk about? But I think for me, a lot of what was said about the women's team after the fairly unimpressive Six Nations about this is a different context, obviously, because the women's game in Wales was basically just willfully destroyed, actually, in a much more active way than just kind of making some bad neglectful decisions. But this thing of like, we need to put pathways back in. We need to have, it's not just about paying people higher salaries or salaries at all. we need the whole picture at the bottom of the professional kind of pipeline to be better, which is not the same as having the grassroots game supported. And I think a lot of what was said then was, I don't particularly trust that the WRU is actually going to do it, but the stuff they identified, I think, is important. Like, if the Welsh regions are going to be anything, what they have to tap into is the fact that it's still a very commonly played game for kids in this country. And they have to make the youth academies really good, and they have to find a way to negotiate the lure of going over the bridge, I think, because you can't stop people wanting to go for a better education or more money where there are opportunities. So we need to find some way to make our academies as attractive, and then have something for the players that still want to leave for school or university or whatever it is, so they can come back and they don't get captured by the England under-20s and the
There are
system.
independent schools in Wales, but for some reason we don't involve them in the same way that schools like Millfield just soak up Welsh kids.
Yeah.
And have done that for decades.
Yeah.
And Millfield were doing it when I was in school. They did it. Gareth Edwards went to Millfield. It's those schools have been doing it forever. There are Welsh independent schools, but we don't seem to use them. And if you look at the Leinster model, which is,
but there's also, I think the Leinster model is, the cluster of private schools that they have in Dublin is absolutely unreal. Like, Wales, and the thing is, Wales culturally couldn't create this.
No.
And I'm not sure it's never seemed to me that saying to a lot of kind of Welsh 14, 15, 16-year-olds, you can go to this Welsh independent school as part of your rugby contract would necessarily be that appealing to them. Like, a lot of players do go to the English schools across the border, obviously, but an awful lot don't, I think. Because I'm not sure that culturally it's that appealing to everyone. We need to have more than one thing, is what I'm saying. There needs to be...
if you're in a comp in Merthyr or Aberdeen, and someone said,
I'm not...
you can come to this
I'm
nice
not over-idealising the quality of state education in South Wales, don't get me wrong. I just mean, I don't think that's the sticking plaster to just be like, we'll sponsor a scholarship to a good school for you. Like, that has to be an option, clearly, because it is an option.
It's not the only route, I don't think, but it's
not the only route. There needs to be other things that we can do, and I think we need to really take that seriously about, like, retaining talent at the earlier stages. This is really obnoxiously boring, but I used to work for a startup in Copenhagen, and it was lots of stuff about, like, customer relations management stuff. Just dreadful. Lovely people, boring content. But one of the things they're obsessed with, right, is, like, you have to find ways to retain people, and you need different options for that. And that is a much better model than just bringing in new people all the time. And I think actually there's an element of this, like, we need to look at 14 to 21, why are players leaving in the men and the women's game, and how can we keep them? That's not just the salaries, because there are an awful lot, I think, of players who are more than good enough, who would be willing to play for not very much money, actually, by rugby standards, for the Welsh regional sides, because they want to play for their team. They want to play rugby. It's enough money, and there are enough other things about it that can help them. And maybe that's like education on the side, not so much the Nigel Ray business model of a house on the side, but allegedly.
Have a house, yeah.
But that's always happened. I've played for clubs much lower level, and who would give jobs and houses to South African guys to come and play in the UK.
Right, but what I mean is something slightly more sustainable for everyone involved. Like, we should just be saying, we'll support you while you do your sports science, like, undergraduate degree or your master's degree. Like, we'll get you training in this other thing. Like, if you from a young age think you want to start coaching, then great. So that players kind of have this thing of, like, well, I'm not risking my health and my, like, livelihood on this game that doesn't pay very well, and the vibes are fucking atrocious.
That's
And,
it's the Exeter model, isn't it? You know,
I
they
think
go to Exeter Uni, and they play for the Chiefs.
There is a little bit of that, I think Exeter pay them more than everyone cops onto, to be fair. But a little bit of that, like, can we do this in Cardiff? Because we should be able to. Can we do other things in Llanelli and Swansea? Because we should be able to.
Well, you've got good sports universities in Cardiff and Swansea. You've got Met, you've got Swansea Uni.
Yeah.
You've got, what's one in Carmarthen? Trinity in Carmarthen.
Because there's just... We can't solve this by throwing money at it, I think. We've tried that and it didn't work.
Well, it's not sustainable. You have to create the culture.
Money.
You have to create the culture. And as much as Leinster do have an awful lot of money, and we can't pretend that it's fairy dust that's creating what they're creating in Leinster, but they also do have systems. And by the time the identikit 19-year-olds are arriving at Leinster, they've already been coached by Leinster coaches in the Leinster way.
Yeah, it's much more kind of... it's a sort of joke about the Leinster pathways, but it is a thing. They do all their ease, and I think Munster is a really good example as well, actually, because Munster have this thing of like a lot of local talent who are really like, I want to walk out at Tobin Park, and that for me is like worth all the sacrifice. And they have the universities there that the players can go to, and then they also have this extra level of like South African players think Munster's really cool, so they're all really happy to go there for like hilarious money that a private investor is paying for. But there is, there are little bits of... Wales has networks like that it could tap into a little bit, actually. It's not the same degree, but
No, but we need
Cardiff,
to start
Cardiff
thinking
can
like
bang
that.
on about their, former All Blacks. Firstly, can bang on about beating the All Blacks. I'm sure Dragons have the Falatau family.
Newport beat the All Blacks as well. Believe it or not, Newport did beat the All Blacks.
Yeah, but we just mention it less.
You just mentioned it last.
I
I actually didn't know that. I was trying to give you that.
Sadly, the wider Falatau family all went to other places. Two of them played for England. And
but what I mean is, rugby does have Welsh rugby has a cultural cachet in other places, actually. And I think we could start saying, like, we want young squads of like mostly local players, and we're going to try and supplement that as much as we can with kind of like players in the sort of Hadley Parks or Johnny McNick model of like, I want something a bit wider than Super Rugby. I'm willing to come over here for like a year or two to see Europe, and kind of layer the teams with stuff like that. And also, I thought this at the start of the season, and clearly Scarlets did not take my opinion on board. But I honestly think all the Welsh regions should just be like, for the next 2 seasons, we just sack off the Irk, basically, and we focus on Europe, and we try and have like some magic for the fans. And some kind of like...
I thought you were going to suggest joining...
I did as well. I was shocked. I thought you were going to say join an Anglo-Welsh league. I wasn't expecting that opinion. What do you think of the Irk, though, Rhiannon, as a product? Do you like it? Do you buy into it?
I think it's a good league. It's irritatingly hard to watch from over here, but I suppose expat fans in Denmark aren't their primary model.
No,
I think it's quite fun. I think it's a little bit. It can be a little bit chaotic. You can't really dip in and out of it, or you can either commit to it fully or dip in very lightly. I kind of think you can't kind of half-ass it, because then you're just like, oh no, everything's changed. Like, I thought Benetton were top of the league, and wow, that did seem weird. It was also a thing, and like, now what's happened? But I think it's quite good. I think the problem for the Welsh regions is always going to be the same. Like, we're not good enough to win it, and therefore it's quite underwhelming.
But we were good enough to win it and have won it, so it's about.
Well, some of us have, yeah.
Well, we nearly did win it.
We came second once. Early 2000s, but still.
We won it twice and came second.
Yeah, you won the
Yeah.
first Celtic League, didn't you? Was it
Yeah.
2004? And then you won it,
2005,
obviously,
yeah.
2012.
Yeah. And then came second the year after. But what I mean is, I think, so this is the thing I say as a Burnley fan, right? As a Burnley football fan.
Commiserations on your relegation, by the way. I'm sorry about Vincent Kompany. He's gone to Bayern Munich, hasn't he?
Yeah. A little bit soon for him, I think, although it's also quite clear that he is that caliber of manager in the future. I don't think
that's a mad appointment right now, I think, though.
I was surprised, I have to be honest.
I thought he was a little bit smarter, and I thought he would have stayed at Burnley for another season at least, or like another season and a half, really. But it's quite hard to turn down, and I think he does know the German league. I mean, yeah, it's a weird one. We all thought he would leave easily within 4 years, and last season was not the one that's just finished. The previous one was
the
like
championship season. Yeah,
the championship season was extraordinary. So I think most Burnley fans are kind of like, well, we'll take it because that was really great. After 10 years of like quite miserable football. Sorry, but so what I was going to say is what my
back to the topic.
Well, so something that quite a lot of Burnley fans, most Burnley fans I speak to, whether I know them well or not, have said prior to that company season in the championship was what they really wanted was a cup run, because we spent every season slugging it out, avoiding relegation by the skin of our teeth, playing quite boring football. And there was just no joy in the season at all. And when Dyche was the manager, he would always sacrifice the League Cup and the FA Cup. I don't know what they call those now, and I don't care. That's what they're called. He would always sacrifice them for the relegation fight. And I think that was understandable, but it was quite miserable. And so I think it struck me immediately when they announced about cutting the budgets. There's no way any of the regions can compete on two fronts with those squads, because they haven't been able to compete on two fronts with the squads they had before, apart from one season for the Scarlets.
Yeah.
And so I think rather than focus on the league and sacrifice the cup, I don't know why we aren't focusing on the cup actually and sacrificing the league, at least for a few seasons. So the fans get some magic, the players get some like experience of winning.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I don't even think we've got the squads. Even if we just focused on Europe, I don't think any of the Welsh regions have got the squad. No.
Don't get me wrong, but like Ospreys actually if Ospreys had fought on one front this season, they could have put something together.
Maybe.
And the fact that they kind of were just about good enough to try both, then really fucked them with the squad that they had. But I think if they'd got into the season and that, like a magic ball and been like, here's where we'll be in February, let's just pick one or the other, they could have made a semi-final or a final, and they wouldn't have beat the Sharks. They wouldn't have won the thing. But a cup run to the final is not a nothing thing. Actually.
No, and we said the same about Dragons, didn't we, Jamie? Like it'd be nice to have a cup.
Think how much Cardiff fans loved their little kiddie cup win a few years ago. It was so nice for them.
But that's it, though, isn't it? Because I get what you're saying, though, because it's highly likely that all four Welsh regions are going to be in the Challenge Cup next season, the second tier. And let's be honest, we have got more of a chance of success in that. Because as you mentioned, Cardiff have won the Challenge Cup twice.
Yeah.
I think Ospreys we could go deep. I think all four teams could go deep in that competition. So yeah, there is more of a chance, isn't it, the Challenge Cup?
Of course it's not a serious competition. Of course it's slightly undignified to be like, I'd love to sack off the league
just a milf
and
away.
prioritise the like tier 2 tournament. Like, yeah, it's a little bit undignified. Have you looked at Welsh rugby? Everything about it is undignified. There is no dignity to be found here. We might as well just face what we have.
But that's where we are, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's where we are.
It's not even just a flippant thing of like, like if you think about Italy men and the conversations that we've been having relentlessly for the last 5 years of like, is it better to give young players the experience if the experience is primarily losing? And I think the thing is about like a lot of those Italy players is like it ignored the fact that they'd spent a lot of time winning at the age grade levels, and it ignored the fact that they like actually did win for Benetton, quite a lot of them, quite often, or the French teams. So they weren't just entirely losing. The Welsh players are basically entirely losing at this point. All of their experience is getting record points things put on them, or in the case of Ospreys, like knowing that they're good enough on the day, but not having the squad for it to really be their day when it matters. And I just think we could say to the players, like, look, we're gonna give everything we have for Europe for the next 2 seasons, and you guys are gonna get the experience of playing against some really cool teams and some really cool players, and hopefully we will win enough games that we make the knockouts and we get some experience in these young players that also involves winning. Like we give them some experience that doesn't send them to a therapist for the stuff we've put them through. It won't be for everyone. All 4 teams probably can't do it. But I genuinely think, certainly if I were if for my sins I were a Cardiff Blues fan or Dragons, or as I'm a Scarlets, I'd be quite happy with the coaches just saying, we're going to focus on Europe and really try and get these players up to scratch, and then we will come back to the Irk when we've got the actual capacity to do it. You know, like we've got players who played games, and we've got some money to buy in the extra players, and we've created squads so we know what we need, rather than, you know, this kind of free fall, cutting off bricks from your leg as you fly out of an airplane approach that we're taking at the moment.
It's a tough league, though, isn't it? The URC. And for all the criticism it gets, you know, it does get a lot of criticism.
It's
the
a
URC,
good league, I think.
Since the South Africans especially came into it, it's bloody tough. There are no easy games now in the URC, and Welsh regions are really struggling to keep up.
Even Scarlets beat Zebra.
Well, they have improved. See,
Well, they have also,
I mean, they beat the Sharks, you know.
It wasn't nailed on that we would beat Zebra. In fact, at half-time, it looked like we might not.
It's a tough old league.
It's a tough league, and I think it's a little hard for some kind of. I imagine it's very hard for England fans, like rugby fans in England, to get their head around, because that kind of tournament structure is quite different than any other kind of English sport, and the same for like. Obviously, it has been this way for Wales fans for a long time now, but still, if your primary thing is like English football, I guess, quite hard. But it's actually
better than the Premiership. I'll say
it's
that.
I think it's way better than the Premiership, the standard.
But is it URC equals best league, as you keep seeing on X and Twitter? Yeah. Do you believe that, Amy? Is it URC equals best league? Because I think top 14 is personally, but what do you think?
I mean, I always feel like the URC equals best league is slightly tongue in cheek. Is it not?
I don't think so. The Irish swear by it. The Irish really do swear by it, and the South Africans, they love it now. And the Scots like it.
I feel like it maybe started off as tongue in cheek. I think it depends on where would I want to go to a live game. Top 14, absolutely. But if you just a random run of the mill fixture drawn out of a hat from one of the leagues, I think I'd probably rather an Irk one. Actually,
you would much rather see something like Sharks versus. Sharks versus Munster.
Sharks versus Munster.
Than you would Northampton versus Sale, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And also, you might get Toulouse versus La Rochelle in the top 14, but you might also get, Turgid versus Turgid. And you quite often do. Those are, it's like if you get Toulon versus Montpellier, that could be a very hard game to watch in France. So I think it sort of depends what you want. And I also think the run-in, the last 2 seasons and this season, from the bit I've caught, obviously I have no personal investment in it. But from a fan point of view, in a more general sense, it's dramatic.
Yeah, it's interesting, the playoffs and everything now, isn't it? Anyone doing it now.
It's dramatic. It's not kind of it's not that, oh, well, we just know that Toulouse and Saracens are going to be in the top 4 sort of thing. It's not the players you see are really good. There's always some kind of mad whimsical element, I think, actually, which I quite like. Yeah, I would not go so far as to say it's the best league, but I think it's a lot better than most Welsh rugby fans give credit.
Me and Gav say URC equals perfectly fine, don't we, Gav? That's our saying.
I think
Perfectly
slightly
fine.
better than perfectly fine. I reckon if any of the Welsh, if the Ospreys had, what was it? Squidge really had this idea that like the Ospreys Leinster game was a potential banana skin for Leinster, just because of the way the fixture fell and like they might put out the
That's
kids
right,
and stuff.
yeah.
And in the end, obviously, they got prison shamed. But had that gone Ospreys' way, and Ospreys was like seriously with a shot of making the 8 and a kind of like possible magical like fairy tale playoff, I think next season we would all feel a little bit differently about the Irk in Wales.
I think for us as Dragons fan, I'm talking for me and Jamie as opposed to yourself. For us as Dragons fans, I think at the minute it's difficult to get too excited because at the start of the season we were being optimistic and we predicted we'd finish 12th.
Yeah,
I think that was you, Gav. Actually, I don't think I finished. Did I predict 12? I don't think
no,
I
you
did.
said
I think I went
13th,
slightly lower. Yeah.
I think I might. I think if you'd asked me what I would have predicted for Scarlets, I might have said 13th. I think maybe I would have hoped we'd be above Blues, you and Zebra.
But if you're predicting 13th in a league of 16,
it's
not great, is it? Yeah, no, it's, so in terms of Scarlets, we've talked about the situation. What about the current Scarlets team? Are there any players that you actually you think are going to take Scarlets on?
Yes. I think I like Dan Davis. I think he hasn't kicked on the way we hoped he would, when we let Jack Morgan go to the Ospreys, which was a decision I found very stressful. But I do like Dan Davis. I think he's had some really bad luck with injury, but I think he still could be a very good player. I think, young Yohan Lloyd, who's not that young anymore, and young Sam C, who's also not that young anymore, are exciting players if we can give them a pack.
And a brain.
I think that'll be interesting.
If either of them had a brain, it would help.
I'm sort of actually fine with them not having a brain.
There's one brain that they borrowed. They loaned each other.
The problem, I think, is the scrum half not having a brain. And to that end, it does upset me that Kieran Hardy's going and Gareth Davis is staying. But I think if we had a slightly more effective pack, I like Joe Roberts. I think he's a lovely player, actually.
Yeah.
I've only seen a little bit of the lad that we've signed from Nottingham, who they're sort of trying to hype.
Ellis Mee.
Ellis Mee.
Welsh qualified.
Welsh qualified. I've seen some like highlight clips, and he looks like he could, you can see why a Scarlets team would want him.
Yeah. He's come from Nottingham, less managed expectations.
This is what I mean. I find it a little bit weird that we're hyping this poor child up so much when he's come from Nottingham. I think actually Alec Hepburn's coming next season, and there's rumours of Henry Thomas, the Welsh.
That's right.
So that, I think, with Ryan Elias coming back, a proper a more serious front row. And then if we could keep Viper Fisher for a season, I think then the younger lads now in the backs have had a bit of time to get to know each other. Because I think this is the thing, it's just been very haphazard. Like, you can really overplay the cohesion thing. And I know because Ireland buy into it a lot and then it sort of doesn't work when they need it to. People are reasonably sort of quite suspicious of it. But I interviewed Ben Darwin about that years ago. And the way that he framed it, I think, is actually is much more compelling, and it's not quite the this will save everything sort of thing. And I simply must pick a 4-year-old from Leinster over a Irk winning Munster player. That's actually kind of not what it's going for. But I think the essential point of players need time to gel together, partnerships need time to gel together, and if you are constantly swapping and changing, young players especially will really, really struggle. And so yeah, basically, I hope that next season we could get Sam C at 10, Johan at 15, Joe Roberts at 13. I think that there might, with a pack in front of them, then maybe we'll score more than one try a game. Maybe we will not be on the back of record points losses, and maybe we will beat Black Lion and win one game in Europe. with
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. That would be a successful season, wouldn't it?
Set yourself high hopes.
Let's look ahead to Judgment Day this weekend. So, Scarlets versus Dragons at the Cardiff City Stadium. Kickoff 3:00. The referee is Craig Evans, Welsh ref. Now, for some reason, I don't quite know why we've done this, but Dragons have done a Gatland.
You've released your team, yeah. I love it.
48 hours early. I don't know why we've done it, but we have. We have named our team ready for Saturday. So I'll quickly run through it. Start with the backs. So Ewan Rosser, he keeps his place at fullback. Then Sri Dyer, Joe Westwood, Anira Knowing, Chris Hollis, Will Reed, and a return from Rodri Williams at scrum half. He's captain for this game. And then forwards, you've got Rodri Jones, Brodie Coughlin, Chris Coleman, Ben Carter, Matthew Screech, Ryan Woodman, Tane Basham, and Aaron Wainwright. And then on the bench, you got friend of the pod, James Benjamin, Rodrigo Martinez, Dimitri Arhip, George Knott, Dan Lydiard, Shea Hope, Steph Hughes, and C.O. Tompkinson. So, Gav, what are your thoughts on that side? Because to me, when I look at it, when you see the guys like Ewan Rosser, Joe Westwood, Ryan Woodman, Brodie Coughlin, Shea Hope, it does feel like a nod to the future, but it's combined with some experience there. So
I think he's given it thought, doesn't he? Because there are all the young lads there. They are all the, like you say, Brodie Coughlin and people having a start. But then you've got the experience. You've got Tane. You've got Wayno. They've thought about it in the backs as well. Rodri will bring a bit of sense to it. And then the bench is looking strong with our hip and trying to remember who else is on the bench. The Dan Lydiard.
Dan Lydiard.
Steph
Former
Hughes.
Scarlet. Remember him? Yeah, Steph Hughes.
Such a calmly competent player. He never really lit things up, so I could sort of see why we let him go. But he was a very reassuringly competent player, Steph Hughes.
Very solid club player.
Yeah, and he's done the same for us. He's not exciting, and we've got better centres coming through and coming in, but he's always there.
But he's not gonna fuck it up for you, which in a Welsh region is actually not.
Oh, we'll do that ourselves. We find other ways of doing that. Gav, don't we at the Dragons?
Oh, yeah. Our absolute unwillingness to show any form of self-discipline is our greatest.
Yeah, I've got to say I've paid even less attention to the Dragon season than the Scarlets, but the things I have seen have not filled me with confidence. But
we are our own worst enemies. That's the problem. We make so many mistakes.
Yeah. Well, because again, it's a young team and they panic and discipline is... It's easy to say you've got to be more disciplined because obviously it's like a sort of bare minimum requirement, but also like discipline requires you lose your discipline when other things are going badly.
And the point that's always missed was our discipline's not good enough. There are times, not like the stupid stuff, like Dane Blacker's yellow card or red card the other week, kicking the ball at the worst point, yellow when he kicked the ball away. But there are times when you think, oh, that ball's out, I can go for that. And your brain kicks in, and instinct kicks in, and you go for a ball, and then all of a sudden there's a whistle, and the arm's up, and you're like, "Oh Christ!" So apparently it was.
He slapped the ball out of Tipperic's hands, didn't he? Blacker. He came in from the offside position. He slapped the ball out of Tipperic's hands. Really, really stupid. I don't know why he did it, but it's things like that let us down.
This is the thing, though. Like, I mean, it's really stupid, right? And you sit there and you watch it, and you're like, "Well, that's dumb as fuck. I wouldn't do that."
Yeah.
Like, well, we would actually.
Every week.
They're really frustrated, though. Like things aren't going well.
I as somebody who gives away a lot of penalties.
You're defending. I would definitely lose my temper and do something dumb like that if I had to play in the Dragons team or the Scarlets team. Like, it's both. There's a reason I'm not a professional rugby player. Obviously, we should expect more from them. But I do think there is a like discipline is both. That's the thing you can kind of control, and we should. It's like fitness. We should be sort of saying to teams like the bare minimum here is that you're fit enough and you don't do stupid shit.
Yeah.
But equally, when you've just been losing all season, when you've been tackling all season for fuck all reward, I can see why you just lose your shit and do dumb stuff and give away like unforgivably dumb penalties because
You
it's
do
kind
try
of
to
like
push it.
the vicious circle of it.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, you
It's
just
so
like, oh
frustrating.
well, what's the loss here? Like, oh, we're gonna lose another game. Like, if I pull this off, maybe we win. If I don't, we were gonna lose anyway. Like, there's a
Yeah. But that's the problem. Like,
I
me and
also
Gav do
find
this
it
pod.
hugely frustrating, but
I know, but we're talking about the same things every week. We're kind of repeating ourselves now. And that's what's really frustrating. And I'm conscious of doing that because it's boring for us. It's boring for the listener when you talk about the same things. I mean, discipline and lack of leadership. I mean, I play bingo with Gav, we do Dragons bingo. We always cross off. Lack of leadership, that's Gavin's favourite one. But 20 penalties against the Ospreys in our last game. You can't concede that amount of penalties expect to win a game. It's so frustrating, Gav, isn't it?
Yeah, you could make a drinking game of the things we say, and it's not because we're boring. It's just because it's the same things coming up. Lack of basics.
You could do it for Scarlets games as well. And this is sort of again like this is what I mean about the like focusing on Europe thing because I think saying like, look, here there's 8 games. That's what we're trying to win here. Actually, we're not trying to win 6 or 8 games in the league. We're trying to win them in a more finite thing. It's a bit easier to kind of go all in, and you just win 1 or 2, and then it rolls through that. Momentum's an overrated thing, but like good vibes do help with stuff discipline actually, and winning a few games in a row rather than like 3 over the course of a season. When you play the other Welsh regions and Zebra, like I just think there's something that would improve a lot of those things, and then players learn leadership, and they get positive rewards for like keeping their discipline. And I just think it would help a little bit. I'd like to see one of the Welsh regions give it a go next season.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, no,
I think it's a good. I think it's a good side considering I did check. You have a load of players injured.
But that's been a problem all season. We've had wretched luck with injuries.
We've had
with a small squad.
20 injuries most weeks all season.
I mean, welcome to the Scarlets and Welsh experience of rugby, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is there
it's
any
a shame
other...
Elliot D isn't available because he's injured. He did his ankle against the Ospreys. We've really missed guys like Lodge Fairbrother and Angus O'Brien. They're really important players for us, but it has been a bit of a struggle. Have you ever been to Judgement Day, by any chance?
No, I was going to go COVID year, and obviously did not. No. And then I did think about it this year, but I didn't know when the whole like finishing the PhD thing would be. So I just kind of, I would like to go, although I always feel like the vibes are actually really depressing.
It does feel a bit like that this year, particularly with the doom and gloom around Welsh rugby, the fact that all 4 sides, I mean, apart from Ospreys have done well, but, we are in that slump.
The general kind of
nothing
gloom.
to play for.
Also, Scarlets seem to be consistently bad on Judgement Day.
That's good news for us.
We must have won some games on Judgement Day, but like I associate Judgement Day with Scarlets losing and losing to Dragons, which I don't enjoy. But no, I would kind of like to go maybe next season, just because I think it's a really nice. Everybody can get together in the city sort of thing. That's the idea of it is really good. I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what we're doing, Gav, isn't it? You're going bigger than meet up.
Yeah,
we are indeed, and I'm trying to arrange to meet with Gav from Rock and Roll as well. It'll be Welsh rugby podcasters.
Yeah. No, I would love to try and do something. I also really wanted to get over for Wales versus Italy women actually in the Six Nations, but exactly the same problem. But I would like to get over for a few of those next year and just try and sort of enjoy the community aspect of it, because that's the nicest thing for me.
Yeah, it's a good day out. Like if you're meeting up with friends, it is a good day
Yeah.
out, even though it will be a bit of a doom and gloom surrounding Welsh rugby. It's what you make of it, isn't it? You know, if you're with
And I
good
think
people, you have a few beers.
it's reasonably priced as well. I think it cost me 55
Yeah.
quid for me and my boy, you know, to watch two games
Two
of
games.
Two games, which is
professional rugby.
yeah.
Like, you know, and it's costing us 140 to watch two games, the Wales, South Africa, Barbarians, Fiji games. And I know which
Oh
ones are
God,
going to be
yeah.
slightly less painful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Gav, Dragons have the opportunity to do the double over the Scarlets because they did beat them on New Year's Day at Ronnie Brady. I don't know if you remember, Sam Costello missed the conversion right in front of the post, which proved
No,
to be
I'd completely blanked it from my mind. So thank you for bringing it back to me.
No problem. When was the last time then, Gav? Dragons did the double over the Scarlets. You know I like asking you these kinds of questions.
And I never know what I say. This is what I need to prepare.
Right, if you listen to the Rap podcast, you would have known. This is how I know you don't listen to the Rap pod, because I talked about this. So you haven't been listening. He hasn't been listening.
I listened to rap on a Friday.
I get him every time, V. I get him every time. Come on.
I'm going to say 2018.
V, do you want to guess? When was the last time Dragons did the double over the Scarlets? What year?
I think it's more recent. I think maybe 2021.
Nope, you're both wrong. It was 2007.
Oh.
So I did sort of feel like it's either absolutely fucking ages ago.
2007/2008 season. That was the last time the Dragons did the double over the Scarlets.
But you've won the last two, haven't you? Because you beat us in Judgment Day last year.
Yeah, so since 2019, we've played the Scarlets and we haven't lost. Because before then, we've played each other a number of times, and we only won our first Judgment Day game in 2019. But since then, we have beaten the Scarlets at Judgment Day. So it has become a good fixture for us this, where we seem to raise our game a little bit. But
this is why I associate it with such despair, I think, because it's not just losing, it's losing to the Dragons.
Oh, Scarlets fans are going to hate losing to us again. If we do the double over, it's going to be pretty sweet.
I mean, honestly, I kind of think you will win. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a decent.
I was going to say, let's do predictions, right? We're going to do our score predictions. Well, yeah, let's do it now. So I said on the Rap Pod, Dragons by 2. You don't have to give an exact score prediction. Thank you. See, someone did their homework, unlike you, Gav. Thank you for listening and supporting us, really. Yeah, Dragons by 2. That was my prediction. Gav?
I'm going to go mad. Dragons by 9.
Oh, fuck.
9?
Yeah, 9.
Why? Why do you think 9?
There's no logic to it.
Clearly not.
I'm like Noel Edmonds. I've called out to the universe, and the universe has answered me.
I hope you're right. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great if you're right. But Dragons by 9. I mean, we haven't seen the Scarlets team yet, so we don't know. What do you think there, Ree? What's your prediction? How do you see this going?
My immediate instinct was Dragons by 4. But I think I wouldn't go as far as Gav, but I think up to Dragons by 6. I think it's a sort of silly pop psychology thing, but I always love Gatlin naming the team early because I felt like it just indicated such confidence in the camp and the team, and a little bit feel just Dragons. I think you keep beating us on Judgment Day. You beat us earlier in the season. It's not like either of us are very good, but you guys feel like you're going into it with a little bit more like, we know how to win this game sort of thing. And I don't think Scarlets will. So,
but you did win Zebra. You are coming into this game off a back row, which Dragons haven't done, to be fair. So you do have a bit of momentum, don't you?
I think this is the kind of thing where I think momentum is limited. One game against Zebra, I don't think.
I'm clutching the straws a little bit admittedly, but I'm just trying to look at it logically from a Scarlets point of view. So what do you think?
Mean, Scarlets have good enough players that I think it's perfectly possible we could show up on the day and win.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
I think it's very likely. I think Dragons by 4 is more likely than a Scarlets win.
Wow, a full
Although if
house
Sam
of the
Costello wants to do a
Dragons
full
fans.
house to redeem himself, that'd be nice. I'm actually going to watch the rugby this weekend, so
How do you watch it over in Denmark, then, Lee? Because how do you keep on top of the URC? Because I'm guessing they don't have URC on the Danish sports channels, do they? Or do you stream it? How do you keep
they
abreast of what's
do
happening?
actually. It's because Viaplay is a Scandinavian
Oh, of course, yes.
company, yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, when I lived in Copenhagen, I had a sports pub that I used to go all the time, and like it was one of those like
Yeah.
very quickly self-fulfilling things. I went once because they put on a Scarlets game for me, and I was like, fucking hell, I couldn't get pubs in England to put a Wales game on for me, never mind a Scarlets one. Like, this is
Fair play,
great.
yeah.
And so because they did that, I would just always go, and then basically every week they'd be like, "Oh, really? Like your game's on the screen down there. You're in the corner." So I always used to kind of watch games there, unless I was like not well enough to go out. I don't really. I've moved from Copenhagen now. I live in Aarhus, which is Denmark's second city, and the Irish pub here is a lot less willing than my sports pub in Copenhagen was. So they put Europe on, and they'll put the knockouts on. But I have to basically get a kind of, there's literally nothing else on in the sporting world.
What about Six Nations? Can you get Six Nations on Danish?
I always go to watch Six Nations. Yeah. And that loads of pubs will show that. That's fine.
Oh, that's good.
But the like club rugby, but it's not Europe, is a lot harder to get in this city. So yeah, I usually just watch it on the laptop.
Yeah, I had wondered. Do you know, I've always wanted to go to Denmark, right? And every time I tell people I really want to go, they all say the same thing to me. People say, "Oh, but it's very expensive." Is it true?
It is very expensive.
Myth.
It is very expensive, to be fair.
Okay.
But it's one of those where it's like, well, it's not expensive if you live here because you get paid. Like,
okay.
So what I would say is it's not like living in London where the cost of living and your salaries just don't really overlap, and didn't even really like 7 years ago when I lived in London, like even before the last few years. Whereas Denmark, it is expensive to visit, but to actually live here, it's fine. Like, I don't make a lot of money by their standards, and I make more than enough. Like, I have a much. So yeah, basically, if you ever do visit, you want to let me know, and I'll tell you where all the cheap places are.
Oh, brilliant! Any Weatherspoons over there in Denmark by any chance? No,
there is not a Weatherspoons. No, we do have some. They have a whole series of. It is legal to smoke here in some places inside.
Okay.
And the places where it's legal to smoke basically are the really cheap places, so it's like £3 for a beer. So if you don't mind all of your clothes stinking of smoke and your eyes hurting the next morning, then there's plenty of cheap places actually. But there's also some other. I'll send you to the good pubs if you ever come over.
Oh, please do. Have you ever been to Denmark, Gav?
I haven't. No.
It's very expensive.
Trip.
It's very expensive.
It is one of the first things that people always ask me as well, and I'm like, yes, it is.
Every time I mention people who go to Denmark, I'm like, oh, it's very expensive, mate. Yeah. It's really expensive out there. But
I've been to Sweden, which was eye-wateringly expensive.
Sweden, I think, is a little bit cheaper than Denmark. Norway will make you just cry and never recover. Sweden is a little bit cheaper compared with Denmark, I think. Like in terms of the currencies, I don't know how it would work with the pound. It's also easier to buy booze in Denmark than Sweden and Norway. They have some very strange rules about alcohol purchasing there.
Oh,
so
okay.
mine's the party Scandinavian country. Just invest your money in something that's not Welsh rugby. And then when you reap your fortune, you can come out for 3 days on the lash in Denmark.
My club got offered to play a Danish club about 5-6 years ago, and the lads were like, I think it'd be a really good idea. I said, but you are aware that it's about £6-7 a beer, and you complain about paying £4 a beer.
Yeah.
And,
it's a bit more these days as well.
We might not go there then.
Hey, can I just say, a mate of mine is playing. Mate is a slight stretch, but I'm going to claim him. Is playing sevens for Denmark women. Played. She played earlier this month. I've forgotten which weekend it was in the little Nordic tournament. But I think she's also going to play later this year in the Euros sort of version as well. It's really cool. She was
that's good.
The only other woman I knew in Copenhagen who already liked rugby, like who wasn't introduced to it by me.
Yeah.
She was a pre-existing rugby fan. And I went back to the city earlier this month. And yeah, I was gonna see her, and she was like, "Oh, I can't because I'm training to play sevens for Denmark." That's really cool.
Wicked. That's cool. That's really cool. Brilliant. Okay. I think we'll leave it there for this week. It feels like we've covered quite a lot tonight, isn't it? Quite a wide range of topics. Rhiannon, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. If our listeners want to follow you on, no problem. Thank you. If our listeners want to follow you on social media, where can they find you? You're still on X?
I'm still. I don't think I've ever actually called it that, but yeah.
Formerly known as Twitter.
I'm still on what is formerly known as Twitter for my sins, and I'm at Rhiannon Garth Jones. I'm sure these guys will tag me so you can find me. I'm on Blue Sky if you're on there, but I don't think many people are.
I come off it now because it was good when I first joined, and nobody posted, so I delete my account. It died a death quickly, didn't it?
I think it's really good for academics who are online and not really for sports fans. So it fulfills one of my things, but absolutely not the other. No, but Twitter is the best place to find me. I don't really post very often, but you will occasionally see me snark about things, I guess, if you follow me. So
all really good stuff about the Roman Empire.
Say really good stuff about the Roman Empire. That's true. Yeah.
Oh, lovely stuff. Okay, so make sure if you're listening to this, then give Rhiannon a follow. Gav, thank you as always. I will see you on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. Let's hope for Dragons win. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our lovely listeners. Please subscribe to the pod if you haven't done already. Spread the word with your Dragons mates, and we'll be back next week. So until then, take care and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Dragons Lair podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Social Podcast Network.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.